The desert wind carried the scent of burnt metal and something else, the kind of silence that follows when everyone sees what they weren't supposed to. The morning sun at Falcon Ridge Air Base rose over a line of A-10 warthogs, their gray hides shimmering in the heat. Maintenance crews moved like clockwork around the aircraft, voices clipped and routine. Before we begin this mission, hit subscribe and ring the bell, because some stories of courage never made the headlines, but they deserve to be heard. Tell us where you're watching from, and who's the hero in your family. Somewhere among them, Staff Sergeant Mara Keene crouched beneath the belly of tail number 982, her hands steady on the feed drum of the GAU-8 Avenger cannon. She preferred mornings like this. No chatter, no eyes on her, just the hum of turbines, the smell of hydraulic fluid, and the steady rhythm of torque wrenches turning. The A-10 didn't care about rank or rumor. It demanded respect, precision, and silence. That was something Mara could give. "Feed linkage secured," she murmured, checking the tension. Beside her, Chief Master Sergeant Holt leaned against a fuel truck sipping coffee. "You'll wear that cannon out before the pilot does," he said, half proud, half teasing. Mara smiled without looking up. "Not if I tighten it first." A shout broke the rhythm. "Pressure test at 3,000 psi coming up. Clear." Mara nodded, adjusted her gloves, and braced. The hydraulic system hissed as it pressurized, a sound she'd heard 100 times. But this one was wrong. A sharp pop followed by the hiss of a broken seal. Fluid sprayed across the undercarriage like a fine mist, streaking her sleeve and cheek. "Kill pressure," Holt barked. The line went dead. Steam rose off the concrete. Mara yanked off her flight jacket, rolled up her sleeves, and stepped under the wing to inspect the rupture. The fluid had cut a shallow line across her shoulder, just enough to sting. The fabric tore where her sleeve caught, and as she leaned into the light, the tattoo on her left shoulder blade caught the sun. The hanger fell quiet. The mark was small but unmistakable. A winged serpent wrapped around a bolt of lightning, ink faded from years and dust. Mara didn't notice the silence until she stood up and turned. The crew was staring past her. Colonel James Rourke stood at the edge of the tarmac, frozen mid-step. His aviator shades hid his eyes, but his jaw had gone rigid. He stared not at her face, but at the mark on her skin. "Sergeant," he said finally, his voice low, almost uncertain. "Where did you get that tattoo?" Mara blinked. "Sir?" The moment cracked as radio chatter flared overhead. "Falcon Actual, maintenance deck, hot zone. Request safety perimeter." Rourke's gaze snapped to the A-10, then back to her. "Clear the deck," he said, too calm, too measured. Holt hesitated, then motioned the crew out. Within seconds, the whine of turbines was the only sound left. Mara felt the air shift, heat rolling off the concrete. Rourke stepped closer. "That emblem," he said quietly. "You know what it is?" She looked down at her shoulder. "Just something I've had since before basic. My dad—" But he didn't let her finish. His face went pale. "Get that cannon sealed," he said, voice suddenly sharp. "Then report to me at 1900, alone." He turned and walked off before she could answer. The day dragged on. Mara finished the repair with Holt watching her in silence. The hose replaced, the A-10's cannon gleamed in the light. By afternoon, the test run went without a hitch. But the crew's glances lingered too long, their voices dipped when she walked past. Something had changed in that hangar. By evening, the desert bled gold across the base. Mara stood outside the hangar bay, hands still stained with grease, staring at the horizon where the sun sank behind the ridgeline. Trace Mendez, one of the pilots, passed by and paused. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine," she lied. He looked toward the command office. "He's been off all day. You do something?" "Guess I fixed the wrong thing." Trace gave a small grin but didn't press. When he walked away, she exhaled slowly. She'd been in the Air Force 8 years. Never saw Rourke rattled. never saw Holt quiet, but both had looked at her like she'd walked in wearing someone else's name tag. At 1900 sharp, she climbed the steps to the command office. The corridor was dark except for a single desk lamp burning behind the frosted glass door marked Base Commander. She knocked. Enter. Rourke sat behind his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. A single file lay open beside a cup of untouched coffee. He didn't tell her to sit. Didn't even look up at first. The hum of the ceiling fan filled the space between them. "Sir, you wanted to see me." He closed the file, finally meeting her eyes. Whatever calm he'd built during the day was gone. His voice came out almost as a whisper. "Where did you get that mark, Sergeant Keene?" She hesitated. "It was my father's unit insignia. He served—" "Echo Serpent," Rourke cut in. "Is that what he told you?" She frowned. "You know it?" His hands tightened on the edge of the desk. "I was there." The words hung between them, heavy as a bomb waiting to fall. Mara blinked. "That can't be possible. The records were buried," he said. "For a reason." She took a step forward. "Why? What was Echo Serpent?" He stood abruptly, pushing his chair back. "That's classified." "With respect, sir, you just said you were there." Rourke turned away, staring out the narrow window at the flight line where floodlights cast long shadows over the A-10s. "Some truths don't stay buried," he said, "and that mark on your skin, it's one of them." Mara felt the ground shift beneath her. Her father had never spoken about his last deployment, only that it ended badly. She'd thought the tattoo was just a memory of him, a piece of closure inked into her skin. But now it was something else, a secret someone didn't want seen. "What are you saying?" she asked. He faced her again, eyes hard, voice low. "I'm saying that if anyone else saw that mark today, you're already in danger." Her pulse quickened. "From who?" "That's what I intend to find out." He gestured toward the door. "Until then, you keep your head down and your jacket on. Understood?" "Yes, sir," she said, though her voice was barely audible. As she turned to leave, he called after her. "Keene." She paused at the doorway. "Your father?" He stopped himself, then shook his head. "Never mind. Get some rest." Outside, the air had cooled, but the wind still carried dust. The hangars were quiet now, floodlights painting long silver streaks across the tarmac. Mara pulled her jacket tight and walked toward the barracks. The tattoo burned beneath the fabric, as if it remembered something she didn't. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the dorm frame sounded like a whisper. Echo Serpent. The words looped in her mind. If her father's unit had been erased, what else had vanished with it? And why did the base commander look at her like he'd seen a ghost? She didn't know it yet, but by the next night she'd start uncovering the reason they buried Echo Serpent in the first place. The serpent wasn't just a tattoo. It was a warning carved into the skin of anyone who'd ever survived the truth. Morning heat shimmered above the Falcon Ridge tarmac as Mara walked beneath the shadow of the A-10 she'd been rebuilding piece by piece. Her hands still bore traces of hydraulic oil from yesterday's accident, the ghost of pressure burns. Around her, the base hummed with an uneasy rhythm, boots on metal, clipped voices, the faint hiss of power tools that never seemed to drown out the silence left by the colonel's order to clear the deck. That silence lingered even now. Colonel Rourke's office blinds were half drawn when she entered. The smell of stale coffee and desert dust filled the air. A tall man in dress green stood beside him, Major Voss, the kind of officer whose ribbons told stories he never needed to. His gaze swept over Mara once, measured, clinical. "Sergeant Callan," Voss said. "Routine verification of service record. Nothing unusual." Her jaw tightened. Routine. The word stung like static. She nodded once, standing at parade rest, eyes fixed on a spot over Rourke's shoulder. Voss slid a tablet across the desk, pages of her file scrolling past with mechanical indifference. Birthplace, training dates, commendations, all accurate until he reached the redacted section. "Your last assignment before Falcon Ridge," he said. "Who cleared your transfer?" Rourke's tone came quiet, guarded. "That's on my authorization, Major." A pause. Paper shuffled. The hum of the overhead fan slowed the moment into something heavy. Voss smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We'll confirm that." When Mara left, Rourke didn't look up. She knew that look. It was the same one he'd worn yesterday, the moment his gaze had locked on her tattoo. Back in the hangar, Trace was waiting, leaning against a tool chest, sleeves rolled high. The youngest tech on her crew, restless, too smart for his rank. "So, what's the deal?" he asked. "Whole base feels like it's holding its breath." "Background check," she muttered, grabbing a rag to wipe her hands. "Standard procedure." Trace grinned. "Sure, and I'm the Secretary of Defense." He tapped his data pad. "Found something you might want to see. Maintenance archives, 12 years old. Look at this emblem." He turned the screen toward her. A coiled serpent etched over a broken wing, black and faded. Her stomach dropped. "Echo Serpent, terminated. Classified mission, log 4-3-12. Her throat tightened. "Where did you find this?" "Base network," he said. "Buried under legacy telemetry files. Weird thing. Access stamp from this week, Autor 30Z. Someone's been in there." 0430Z, the same time the hydraulic line had ruptured yesterday. She exhaled slowly. "Don't tell anyone you pulled this." Trace's grin faded. "You know what it means, don't you?" She didn't answer. That night the wind picked up across the runway, carrying the fine grit of the desert through every open vent. Rourke found her by the ammo bay, clipboard in hand but eyes elsewhere. "I flew with your father once," he said quietly. "Echo Serpent. We were ghosts before the world even knew we existed." Mara froze. "You knew him?" Rourke nodded, staring past her. "We ran a live fire test off the coast. Wrong coordinates. Friendly unit in range. Whole op buried before dawn. They called it a systems malfunction, but we both knew better." His voice hardened. "That tattoo. He had one, didn't he?" Mara felt the ground tilt beneath her. "He told me never to speak of it." "Smart man," Rourke said, "but the past doesn't stay buried forever." He turned away before she could answer. Later, unable to sleep, she returned to the maintenance logs. She pulled up test data from the A-10's telemetry system. At first it looked normal, standard feed for training rounds. Then she saw it. Weapon loadout flag, manual override. 30mm training rounds swapped for live ordnance. Same access pattern as 12 years ago? She whispered under her breath. "Someone's recreating it." Her comm pinged. "Trace to Callan. Urgent," she answered, voice low. "What is it?" "Security just locked down the hangar. They're pulling your clearance." She closed her eyes. "Who ordered it?" "Major Voss." By the time she reached the main gate, Voss was waiting with 2 MPs. "Sergeant Callan, by order of Command Security, you're suspended from duty pending review." She stared him down. "Review for what?" He gave that thin smile again. "You tell me." Before she could speak, another voice cut through the tension. "That's enough, Major." Captain Holt, range control officer, stepped into the floodlight's edge. His tone was clipped, military clean. "Colonel Rourke signed a provisional delay. Sergeant Callan stays operational for 24 hours. Voss frowned. "This is irregular." "So's half our command right now," Holt said. "Stand down." The MPs hesitated, then moved back. Voss's eyes met Mara's, cold, unblinking. 24 hours, he said. "Use them wisely." When they were gone, Holt's shoulders eased. "Rourke's buying you time," he said. "Whatever's going on here, he thinks you can prove it." Mara nodded, heartbeat steadying. "Then I'll need trace and telemetry. We're going to track whoever's accessing those logs." "Be careful," Holt said. You're poking at something the brass buried deep." "Yeah," she whispered, "and it's starting to move." Hours bled away in the glow of computer screens and flickering hangar lights. The serpent insignia reappeared again and again across archived files, each one tied to a corrupted entry in the new weapons data. Every line of code was a breadcrumb leading back to the same origin, an unlisted operator tag, Echo S01. Trace leaned forward, pale in the light. "That's not a ghost file. Someone's running it live." "Which means," she said, "Echo Serpent isn't just history. It's active." The words hung between them like the sound of an unpulled trigger. Somewhere in the dark, the turbines of an A-10 began to spool, whining low and rising, a mechanical heartbeat that refused to die. And Mara knew then that the serpent wasn't finished with her yet. Tomorrow it would strike again. By the time the alarm sirens began to scream, Mara already knew who had pulled the trigger, and why. Night draped over Falcon Ridge like a held breath. The runway lights burned faint blue through the dust, and the hangars stood silent, sealed in steel shadows. Inside the restricted armory, the hum of servers pulsed against the walls. Quiet, predatory, alive. Mara moved between the rows of consoles, her fingertips tracing the keypads as she worked through each encrypted line. The corrupted targeting data was almost finished uploading to the test control system. 10 more minutes, and the A-10s would carry falsified coordinates. Another accident, another cover-up. She'd seen the pattern too many times to doubt it now. The same access signature, the same overrides, the same serpent that had devoured her father's unit 12 years ago. She entered the command line manually. Control, Delta 3, manual disengage circuit. A warning blinked red. Override access restricted. "Come on," she whispered, "just one clean cut." Behind her, a door unlocked with a deliberate click. Major Voss stepped into the light, calm as a man returning home. "You shouldn't be here, Sergeant." His voice carried no anger, only the slow certainty of someone who'd been expecting this. "But I suppose blood always finds its way back to the source." Mara didn't turn. "You corrupted the targeting data." "I refined it," he corrected. "Echo Serpent was never a failure. It was unfinished. Controlled chaos. Perfect conditions for measuring how pilots react under friendly fire simulation." Her throat went dry. "You killed them for data." Voss smiled faintly. "Your father understood the cost of innovation. He agreed to the parameters." "That's a lie." "Is it?" He stepped closer, the glow of the monitors painting his face in fractured light. "Rourke flew lead. Your father ran diagnostics. Both signed off on the test. Only one of them walked away. Ask yourself why Rourke buried the truth." Mara's breath hitched. "You wanted me here," she said. "The tattoo, the file leaks. You knew I'd come looking." Voss nodded once. "I needed someone who could finish what he couldn't. Someone who still believed in ghosts." A second siren flared across the base. Range control alert. Test flight initiated. Mara froze. "Trace!" "Your friend volunteered for the midnight systems check," Voss said. "Perfect timing." She lunged for the console. "Cancel it." Voss drew his sidearm, leveling it at her. "No, we observe." The comm burst alive with static. "Trace 1 to ground. Confirming engine spool up, 4200 RPM. Systems nominal." "Trace, abort," she shouted. "Your feed's compromised." Silence then. "Copy that." "Ground, repeat. Telemetry's reading live ordnance." Rourke's voice cut in, strained. "Trace, hold position. Do not engage. Mara, what the hell's going on?" Voss's gun didn't waver. "He deserves the truth, too." Rourke appeared in the doorway, sidearm drawn. His eyes flicked between them, disbelief sharpening into fury. "You set this up," he said to Voss. Voss didn't deny it. "We're proving a theory, Colonel. Echo Serpent failed because emotion compromised discipline. Tonight, we correct that variable. By killing another pilot. Rourke's voice cracked. By finishing the experiment. The two men stood locked in a moment thick with history. One bound by guilt, the other by purpose. Rourke's hands trembled as 12 years of silence pressed on his chest. He raised his weapon. "Put it down," he ordered. Voss smiled coldly. "You won't shoot me. You need me alive to stay clean." That was his mistake. Rourke fired. The shot cracked through the room. Voss fell, wounded but alive. Mara didn't hesitate. She hit the console, typing through the warning flashes. Control. Delta 3, manual disengage circuit. Access granted. On the screen, Trace's A-10 dipped toward the range. Target lock flashing red. Trace 1 to ground. Systems malfunction. Gun cam is live. "I've got him," Mara breathed, forcing the override. The targeting reticle blinked out. "Trace 1, pull up. You're off trajectory. Copy?" The jet rose, clearing the ground by a heartbeat. Silence followed. Rourke lowered his gun. "Telemetry stable?" "He's safe," Mara said. Outside, dawn broke. The A-10 rolled home under a blue-gold sky. Rourke saluted her, not as a commander, but as an equal. The ghosts of Echo Serpent finally faded into the morning light.